Hello again. It's a month already since I did what turns out to be the first of these video updates, and I suspect we'll be doing more before we get to see one another again face to face in the same physical space. Last time I spoke to you about the ways in which we had begun to be a church dispersed by putting worship online and beginning the congregational care clusters, and I'm happy to say that both of these are working well. There's still learning curves and tweaks to be done, but I am really pleased to see how many people are engaging in both of those. So today what I want to do is to update you first on how many more things we're now doing online, to speak to you about COVID-19 and how it impacts us as a faith community both now and into the future. Thirdly, I want to share with you the deliberations of the finance team and the board over the last month or so, because we are going to need your input in order for us to make wise decisions going forward. So let me begin by updating you with some of the things that we are doing in our homes online since the end of April. A lot of the detail was in the email that Elisabeth sent out to you last week called CPU Online. But I note with delight all the many ways in which we are doing worship, the men's and the women's group, choir weekly socials, the finance team, the board, worship and praise and CD ministries. There's a Midrash study group, Kids Zoom, and even F4 are offering connection and content online. We are ramping up how to provide some nutritious meals for isolated seniors. The clusters are working at grassroots level, doing all sorts of things from online check-in to over-the-fence check-in. There is continued ministry and missional activity as much as we're able, and we'll be wanting to do more of that going forward. So the simple thing to say is this is not a church that is shut by any means. It's a church alive, deployed, dispersed, and yet connected. To quote one of the finance team, who's also one of the trustees, he says, "It's impressive," and he's right, it is. Secondly, I want to talk to you about COVID-19 as it impacts us as a faith community. Already I am seeing real psychological and spiritual impacts of isolation, restriction, restructuring, and job loss, and of course the growing need for grief and loss support. It's also making us ask some really big questions about how we continue to be us, Cedar Park United, while gathering together is still unsafe and likely to be so for quite a while. So going forward, it's becoming clear that when we regather, it will not be like anything we've experienced before. Because of what we're learning about aerosol and touch transmission of this particular virus, all sorts of protocols from cleaning to gathering, we won't be able to loiter with intent anymore, singing, limited speaking in the worship space, space restrictions in there, and of course the big question that concerns me most is that gathering of vulnerable populations for whom actually gathering is too risky. Because of all of that, I want to now share with you some of the deliberations by the finance team and the congregational board. And if Norman can swing to the screen, we can use that. So one of the things we did to start with was to review our Vision 2020 priorities and goal and budget. And here you see them on the screen. What we had agreed as a congregation back in February was that our priorities for 2020 would be worship, that would eventually, at some point this year, reach more people by doing live stream or video recording of worship. And we all know what happened to that on March 15th. Secondly, that we had committed to repurpose our sanctuary space as multi-purpose space as well as worship space, knowing that the floor is both unsafe and impossible to clean. Thirdly, we were to continue and to deepen our caring ministries with seniors and our ministries with families, children and youth, and to continue to deepen our work in food security ministry and community and refugee support directly and with partners. Who knew? Amazing goals that have become even more essential as we pray, discern and strategize for a healthy future for our congregation. If those are our visions, obviously we needed to look at our finances from stem to stern. Noting that while we started off well financially with 11 weeks of no in-building activity, our donations and our rental stream revenues are down. So the board and the finance team have spent time identifying current, lost and potential revenue streams, and that means we are looking for grants wherever we can. We're looking at wage subsidies where they apply, and we are already making cuts where we can to expenditures. For example, current cleaning contracts have been reduced while we're not using our building. Outdoor landscaping nice-to-haves have been pushed aside for this year. We are also reviewing staff contracts to see if there are creative ways for us to respond and reduce costs. And I want you to know that the board does not want to make cuts to a team that is working exceptionally well, but it is something we're prepared to do if we have to. So the board is in a critical space right now. We believe that the vision is right on. We believe that our floor will hamper our ability to reopen, and it needs to be redone. As I've just said, we believe, and I'm saying this on behalf of the board, we believe that all of the staff team has been doing exceptional, resilient work. It's a team that is strategizing to plan for a healthy future. But the bottom line is, with our projections right now, we can't afford it all. So this is where I get to my fourth point today, which is to invite your responses in 3 ways. And the first and the most obvious is financial support. We are grateful we have the daycare, but other than that rent, it's all on us as donors and contributors. So first, see me when I say thank you to all of those of you who are keeping up with your PAR payments, who are moving your checks into the mail or using e-transfer or using online the donate button on our website. Thank you to all of those of you who are doing that. Knowing that we can count on that support will help us to make wise spending choices, but we're also aware that many of you are being impacted financially. So again, I say to you, look after your families first. And if your circumstances are such that you can't support us as much as you have done in the past, send an email confidentially to Elisabeth Chown so that we know not to bank on money that may not be coming in. Second way to respond is to continue to participate in the congregational care clusters, to continue to support and maybe even to bring suggestions to us as to how we can continue to fulfill our missional goal to provide refugee support where we can and food security ministries. Continue to join us in worship either online live or by looking at the website recordings. Join in on the Midrash study group, the meditations, the Healing Pathway prayer groups. There are many ways for you to continue to feel fed and connected. And the third piece is to provide input. Everything I've said this morning is a lot to take in, so we want to let you mull this over the weekend. And our board chair, Cheryl Roscoe, will be sending out an invite probably on Monday or Tuesday next week to participate in a short online survey, which will give us the input that the board needs when it meets again in mid-June to make the decisions that it needs to help us to respond and to prepare well for the mid and long-term impacts of this pandemic on our faith community. There is one thing that I do know. In the last year alone, together, this congregation has responded with faith in God and in our own gifts and talents to a cancer diagnosis of your minister, to a major flood, and now a global pandemic. There's an old hymn that some of you may know. Faith of our forebears living still in spite of dungeon, fire and sword. I don't even want to mention the word fire. I don't want to give anybody any ideas on this Pentecost weekend. But because of all of that, I am absolutely confident that God has a mission and a ministry and a future for Cedar Park. We will come through this together. We know that there is more for us to do, to be together during this COVID time and long beyond. And we do it by pulling together. We do it by praying together. We do it by working together. We do it by supporting the ministry of Cedar Park however, wherever, and whenever we can. Thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you in church on Sunday or sometime. God bless.